What we got here? Ding, ding, dings. What am I seeing ding, ding, dings about? Okay, it's gonna be a good hangout. I hope everything seems to be working. Give a little time here, see who comes on. Yeah, let's go on here. Well, let me see. This thing to working. I hope it's working. Nobody's viewing me yet. Come on in, people. The hell of a deal's on. Let's talk. Even on my it should be on the Hell of a Deal channel. This Hell of a Deal up here. I guess y'all can see me. I'm gonna sit here and wait for y'all to show up. Hey, there's somebody. Where'd you go? Come on in, join me. Oh man, come on. Yeah. Almost had it. Anybody, come on in. You're in my circles. There you are.
Hey, it said I couldn't join like a second ago.
Oh wow.
Hang on, let me actually plug in my headset. I'm on my phone now. Sorry about that.
Am I putting out an echo or anything?
Nope. I just want to put mine because sometimes, you know, with technology and everything, it doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
YouTube's been a good example of that lately.
I care less like how YouTube decides to work or not. Work or not, because it's, you know, YouTube. It does what it wants. You know, they design the site, and if they want to take features away and add features or whatnot, more power to them. It's just us to use it or not.
Yeah, it's their business.
There's
not many other sites out there that do what they do, so.
Or on the level and the But if YouTube fucks up enough, you know, some of these other smaller sites will get bigger.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry for cursing, but it's just too natural a habit for me.
I expected that from some of the participants, so this is an 18 older thing, so don't worry about it.
All right, I try to keep it clean, but when I'm talking to an adult, it comes out a little easier. And I don't always think, wait, this is on air, this could be an open audience.
Yeah. Well, you swear and I'll smoke, okay?
I'll join you in the smoking, but I'll keep up the swearing for you.
A lot of bad habits come along in this world sometimes, and this is the last one I have to defeat right here. But
I imagine you got some other bad habits that we all have to work on. That's more not personality bad habits sometimes, because we all screw up when treating other people wrongly.
I call it the human glitch.
Yeah. Because you know, when you have a, you have a bad day, you always kind of easily overreact to something, or take something that shouldn't have been offensive as offensive.
I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I think we all do. It's how strongly you feel about something sometimes has an effect on how you respond to something.
Or if you come to it from a very emotional place.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
yeah,
a victim of a certain crime might be very emotional talking about that crime, and they might not always, you know, when somebody says something they don't think is the best thing to say about it, they'll blow up at them, which is understandable because they've been through something significant. But it still doesn't excuse the blow up. It just kind of gets, okay, yeah.
I can't see any. We got one viewer. Looks like. Is that you?
No. I just checked see what was, if it was live, and it was going. I'm like, whoop. Then I saw the link. I was away from my phone / computer and everything at the moment. So I came once I saw it, and you're like, come on, somebody please come in. I'm like, oh yeah.
I was thinking I might have to start talking to myself.
I remember a little bit what you talked about, like the topic in your video that you want to kind of sort of suggest.
Yes.
I was kind of thinking about it a little bit. It was kind of coming to me where I kind of feel like we all get our, you know, reality or knowledge from observing things. And it's all our perceptions is how we perceive it, you know. Me and you can perceive one event differently because how we saw it, you know. One can claim a supernatural cause for something while somebody could claim a natural cause, you know. Like some of the, like, evidence for God, like people, like, you know, I heard like somebody fell on a skateboard a certain way that prevented them falling forward, which would have made them get hit by a truck or something, you know. Since they fell backwards, they felt like it was God pushing them back versus, you know, some natural means. Which I'm not going to argue or dissuade them from it, but I'll have a different opinion on that event, even if I was there, you know.
But that's, you know, I understand that one. That's one of the reasons I chose the topic. I went through a few events in my life that, from my perspective, they were real, but questioning them, you know, because how do I know it was real? It seemed real, and then I got to looking into things. How do we know? You know, like it sounds like a science fiction novel. How do we know we ain't just a brain in a jar? It's got all these electrodes hooked to us.
Yeah, kind of more the question of autism or whatever it's called.
Yeah, and they got me wondering. Well, I don't know. But there is a point to that it really kind of I find disturbing, and if it's real, you know, that would be really I'd like to think that's not true. But
then that would pretty much, if you go with hard solipsism, you would be the only thing that is real.
Yeah,
then it really wouldn't be matter. It would be just like you doing things. Your mind would be doing things just to entertain your mind, so it doesn't go forward through all eternity, more or less.
And, all the illusions. There are illusions and magicians. Yeah. Everybody been to the magic show knows that your mind can be fooled. And they know these tricks. And how much of what we see is just an illusion, but wow, you know, this thing just appeared out of nowhere. Well, how do we know it wasn't just an illusion. It
Yeah.
could have been all along and all that, you know.
Well, see, for me, I can't go with hard solipsism. I could go with possibly a soft solipsism, which is, where it's like, I think I don't really remember all much about this, but it's kind of like, where we can still perceive things that are real, but we're not sure exactly what's real due to, two eyewitnesses to a crime can see two different things, and they were standing within 5 feet of each other. So it's because there is still that perception of the perceived reality versus the actual reality. Because we do have our cognitive bias, which, from like growing up, you were taught probably, to try your best, to do your best, to look, to be right when you can, and do the right thing. So we tend to look for things that back what we think and feel, and will formulate thoughts and ideas around it, which will alter our perception between different people. That's why people who believe in God and don't believe in God, or supernatural events, or non-super, or or a natural explanation. Because we perceive things differently, and that's why normally I am very chilled and relaxed dealing with theists of any type, because whatever you've been through in your life, and I'm talking all your life, brought you to that conclusion. I'm not here to destroy that, type of a conclusion. To me, I'm not a scientist. I was a former medic. I love science. I love biology, even though I'm not that good in it. But, without biology, a lot of the things we do in medicine couldn't be done,
Yeah.
Well, and so I have a very strong love for the science, even though I might not have the best understanding of it. And my problem is when people reject things that have been proven, but because they just don't feel like it fits with what they believe, even though many people believe the same thing or similar thing, but they don't go as far, like with young Earth creationists or biblical literalism or whatever. But they'll still have the same core belief in that God, but they'll still be able to accept evolution versus like the fundamentalists that reject it,
Yeah, there's a big debate on that within the Christian community itself. There's a lot of division.
That's been going on since like the Council of Nicaea, I believe, too.
Yeah. I
believe one of the saints that was, just a bishop back in the day said, if science comes up with an answer that you don't think like the Bible backs, it's your interpretation of the Bible is wrong. Because he's kind of going along the line saying the Bible is truth. You just might have the wrong interpretation of the truth, and it's not backing what is truth also. It's kind of saying God caused science, so if we discover, science says this, God is actually saying this,
Yeah.
And when I was a Christian as a young teenager, that's what I kind of believed. Once I got, I had, I believe, in young Sunday school, I was taught young Earth creationism a little bit because it's just a simpler message for kids. But once we started to get into the junior high level of Sunday school class, it was not heavy on young Earth creation when you're talking about the creation myth. That we said, yeah, it could be possibly old Earth creation. Evolution doesn't, disprove, creation if you go with older. We talked a little bit about that, and that to me made sense, because we had good evidence, at least me, for evolution, while young Earth creation really doesn't have much for good evidence.
I got something that might surprise you on that one. See, I am undecided actually because I wasn't there, and testing all the evidence I see, I'm finding things that point both ways. I think the biggest problem in it is in the dating, who dates it, how it's dated mostly. I don't believe 6,000 years would be right. I'm more on the man being around about 40,000 years.
And that's about right, or so. I mean, if you count, like, depending on how you, in the evolutionary line of quote-unquote man.
I'm not sure, which evolution do you refer to? Are you referring to, like, single-celled organism to man? Or?
No, I'm talking like the evolution of, well, see, we were Homo sapiens, and then there were, like, a couple of type of Homos.
Evolution or Homo sapien to man, modern man.
Exactly how long Homo sapien is, but I know there's been an upright human at least around for 40,000 years.
Yeah, so we're pretty much agreeing.
Yeah.
We're agreeing on that then.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the...
Of the Earth, I kind of like to think, science has got a good ballpark figure. They could be wrong,
Yeah. There's a lot of science, though, that's being ran by government institutions that have a certain agenda, too. And we have to kind of glean through some of that. It's like they're wanting to charge us for breathing now, You're breaking up.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hang on. I get sometimes connective issues. But, like, there's a difference between government-funded and government-ran studies.
Yeah, I agree there. Yeah,
and the ones that are just funded, that really means the government's like saying, here's some grant money, you go study this, we're going to leave you alone, give us the results. Then the ones that are ran are like the DARPA ones, And anything coming out of, like, anything a government research project that's, headed by some people in government, I don't trust, period. You got a lot of misinformation from the government back in the day about marijuana and everything else and stuff like that.
Yeah, and, our school systems are ran by the government, so education, a lot of it is indoctrination.
If you kind of really want to look at the definition of indoctrination, it is educating to a certain philosophy or an ideal. So if you're teaching mathematics to a kid, you can technically say you're indoctrinating kids.
Yeah, but there are other courses besides mathematics.
And I'm history. If you can slant history in a certain way to paint things a little bit worse than what they are than they actually are, And I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and the history is always wrote by the victors anyway, isn't it?
It's like you will never get all the atrocities that we know about that we did to the Native Americans in the history book. For one, that would be a history book unto itself, Yeah.
I believe this is
the known incidences, or the biggest ones of certain eras to talk about. Like the Trail of Tears, the Battle of Little Bighorn, Custer's Last Stand, and all that stuff. But you don't necessarily hear about the Mormon thing with the Indians up in, Utah back in the day?
Yeah, when they wiped out that stage, or that wagon train going through, That was a big deal back then. I believe the United States government made war on the Mormon state of Utah.
They did. They declared a war on Mormons. That's kind of funny. And Christians talk about a war on religion now.
Yeah.
Sorry. I had to. That's just.
Religion. I don't believe religions cause war as much as they're used to promote them.
Or to give a backing or a justification to it. Hey, we got a lot of godly people in here. If we say God says this war is okay, we're playing to the crowd here.
Yeah. Go back to World War II and find people camped in Christmas, and Germans and Americans are both Christians singing carols together.
That was fun during the trench warfare during Christmas. There was a lot. I don't know about World War II if that happened, but they had dinners together. They played soccer in the middle of between the trenches and stuff. And and it was not just the Christians and everybody. it was, you know, the Jewish soldiers that were also on the American side at that time doing this, you know, because I had Jewish people eating Christmas dinner in the army with me. You know, because, one, it's the meal that we're having today, and we're just going, you know, and everybody, like in the barracks, stateside, you know, go into the DFAC, chow hall, your commanders and your first sergeants will be all in dress uniform behind the serving line, serving you. And so it's really more of, I would like to use it as in the military as a universal religious holiday, kind of. You know, it's just a meal that we're having together that our superiors are serving to us, just out of courtesy, you know. And, you know, and that's why I kind of see the incident in, I shouldn't say incident, the event that happened in World War I was soldiers just coming together and being soldiers and taking the time off from the craziness.
Yeah.
They had a lot of hard time getting the soldiers start fighting back because...
Yeah, they saw the other side was just like them, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I became a medic, more or less, in my own head, even though I wanted to be like a combat engineer going down to the recruiter office. But I knew deep down I had respect no matter who I'm going to be fighting against, because they felt the need to fight us for whatever reason. The same need that I felt we should go against them is being just applied against me.
Yes, the way you treat your wounded prisoners is a good sign of how the country is.
Yeah, and it's not even just that. It's how you treat your foe in battle.
Yeah.
Period. You know, I mean, if you're going in there and they gave up, you don't keep on attacking.
Yeah.
If they're running, depending on like how big the force is running, is kind of depends on if you should, you know, pursue or shoot at them while they're running away. Because they could be, you know, a force could have moved too close and they're just falling back to regroup and turn around and, you know, fight. If it's a big enough group, you know.
Things like that retreat they had there out of Kuwait, that was just over the top, if you ask me.
Yeah, but see, there was also, military also had, there was talks about going into Iraq. So the military, like, heads were saying, screw them up now so we don't have to deal with them later. Because that was kind of a plan, but we didn't get the backing that we thought we were going to from the international community.
Mm-hmm.
So we stopped it. But before doing that, we built up a lot of support in the south of Iraq. Then after we didn't go through, and a little while after, Saddam came in there and screwed them over and, you know, did his Saddam Hussein thing, you know?
Yeah.
Because they kind of stood up against Saddam.
That's all one big mess. Yeah, that's the word. The whole thing was from the beginning.
Well, I mean, if you really want to go back to the beginning, we would have to go to dealing with Iran first, and which caused the Islamic Revolution come in and take over, which then turned around. The Ba'ath Party was kind of put in power by us, but then Saddam took over it. We didn't like Saddam. We tried to kill him a couple of times. We failed. Then later become sort of allies / buddies with him, selling him weapons to keep Iran in check. And here's the thing. Reason why Iraq invaded Kuwait, it was because of their war debt to Kuwait in Saudi Arabia was having a hard time being paid off because Kuwait was like double their oil production or whatever, where it decreased like the value of crude oil. So it made it harder for Iraq to pay off Kuwait for Kuwait loaning money for Iraq to fight Iran.
Yeah, it's all about the money anyway. It goes down to who's ruling the bank. the banks.
I see why Saddam was being so pissed off at Kuwait, but still, you don't get the right to invade the country over.
No, it seems to me like the banks are the enemy of the world right now. Them central banks, them you know, IMF and all that. They're the ones stirring up all this stuff. And if you don't want to play ball with them, that country's the one that next falls. That's what it appears to me like.
Yeah. I'm not a big into like conspiracy, but I do believe like certain aspects that they're within our government can be pulled by not necessarily an organized group of quiet people, but you know, if you got enough money, you can buy power, which means you buy politicians and you influence it. So I do believe that there's not necessarily a shadow government, but I do believe that there's people out there who manipulate of this world that are CEOs of all this money to get better like trade deals or worker or worse worker conditions or less worker rights in these third world countries for cheaper products, you know.
Yeah, it's all greed. It's all greed behind it all. But we're getting off topic.
Well, I mean, I understand that. I mean, but
yeah, it's a deep subject. I would like to. You were in service as a medic and served as one. I'd like to thank you for that. That's an honorable service. And thank you for your service.
Say thank your congressman.
Okay. Now
it's a thing that a drill sergeant, you know, when you said thank you, drill sergeant, he's like, don't thank me, thank your congressman. You know, so it's just a little inside joke to myself when people, you know, that I'm friendly with say that to me.
Well, I'm glad we're on friendly terms.
But I just did my job, and I don't really need to be thanked for it. My job was thanks as enough.
That's good. That's good. So now,
trying to get back on it, like how we know things and what is actual reality will always have like a certain filter on it. That's this personal filter. And it's tough to sometimes separate ourselves from that. And the best way I kind of have to do is kind of what my dad taught me as a kid, very young. Question everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of my faith right there, is in questioning. There are things, however, that we all can agree are real. There are things that everybody of sound mind can agree is real. That's how we cure things, make sure it's accurate. You know, verify thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know that when from a battlefield perspective, even, you know, that the artillery's called in on such and such coordinates. Well, they verify to make sure so they don't blow something else up. And oftentimes it'd be like 3 checks, I think it is, 3 checks before they fire the guns.
Yeah, and that's not the check that they do at the artillery piece, not on the radio when you're calling in for the artillery fire. You know, you'll say your coordinates, and the person on the other end will ask you to repeat them just normally to double check if they misunderstood or didn't hear quite right. Or when if they feel like they have it right, they'll repeat the coordinates back to you to make sure it's the right coordinates. Because if you transpose 2 numbers, you could literally bomb your own guys.
Yeah.
Or kill them, I guess you should call it, since it's artillery, not necessarily an airstrike.
So knowing that they're hitting the real target that they're aiming at, that's pretty vital. So they have a way of testing that the shell's going to really hit where they're aiming.
Yeah, within approximately.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you within a range of like.
Yeah. So they got a lot of science behind that to tell them that that's going to work. So a lot of that they're trusting their minds and their numbers and how they're working their guns, but they really don't know it's going to work till they fire that gun, do they?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you on the shell that like on the assembly line for that shell, they could have short you, 15 grains of powder, and now you got a little bit of a shorter shot.
Yeah. So there's a hit and miss even in knowing their reality kind of on that.
You have the predictable reality. If everything's in a perfect world, if you do this, this will happen. But there's always the chance for that outside variable to come in to throw the monkey wrench into the scheme of things.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, let's go with something like simple. We all can perceive gravity at roughly the same way. We can observe if we, pick up something and let it fall. That's gravity in effect, more or less.
Yeah.
So we can observe that. We know that's to be real because it's, and just about everybody who's of sound mind can see this and understands this without knowing the full science behind it and all the mathematical equations.
It's not necessarily a rational mind thing. It's more of an instinctive thing.
Yeah, but when you get onto something that's a little bit more complex, like evolution, maybe, then it's not as easy to see and everything, then you'll get more doubts with it, because it's more of a complex, more of a nuanced, and less observable thing, because some of the things you need millions of years to see.
Yeah.
Or thousands of years, depending on whatever species. But like with bacteria, we can, see the strain of like flu virus mutating to a different type of flu virus going from its offspring. Or viruses and bacteria mutating to be able to become resistant to these certain antibiotics.
Yeah, but they still stay bacteria, so they still.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
one thing into another. It's still within the same classification,
Yes.
If you kind of even look at like dog breeding, that proves evolution on a certain level. But like, there's still the bigger level of evolution where it's tough to see because it takes so long of time in the transition. There are some transitional species out there that you can't. Or is it a cat or is it a squirrel? Or something like that. Because it's morphing and it's not what it was. But it's not what it will be. And we do have some evidence of like this in like non-human species, that I know of, or I've seen, and I wish I could give you like the link to it or whatever to like this transitional species so you could look at it.
That brings me to another thing, one of the vital things in science, and that's the critical part about it. A lot of these very things are criticized by many of the very scientists that are working on it. They find problems in their own theories, and they're working on them still. So they're still an undecided thing. They just think it is that way.
Well, they might have, like, I would go with that's more the hypotheses that they're working with, and they're refining it to become an actual theory, because in the scientific world, hypotheses is like the more or less the question in what you think will be, and theory is that proven. So for it to be theory, it would be proven to be to whatever standard would be.
It's shown to work in these tests. It's shown to work in these tests as they thought it would. So we can say this works.
Yeah, and then like with like the quantum level stuff and like the stuff like that, where we don't have a proper way of testing it, they have a different level of scrutiny to prove to be considered, a theory. And I count most quantum physics as hypotheses, when they talk about being an actual theory, because we don't have a way to physically test it. Like the string theory is counted as a theory in quantum physics, but we don't have an actual way to physically test it. We can't go to these quote-unquote other dimensions or universes or whatever they are,
The mathematics just goes with what they're trying to work with, and that mathematics depends upon which version of the string theory you go by.
Yeah.
It's a there's a lot of weird things in that quantum physics, like the spooky force and all that thing.
I find it interesting to read about some, but I just can't really get my hands on it too well because it can't be proven the way I'm used to things to be proven. I like even medical, to be something to be proven a positive medical treatment, it needs to have a success rate over 80%. And that's a lower standard than like for biology. But that's still 80% of beneficial help from this medication is good medication, which you kind of got to think about chemicals affect people differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have some error, but if it works for at least 80% of the population, it's a decent medicine.
That reminds me of a story of psychiatric medicine that they found out in the blind studies, that patients taking a placebo from a doctor wearing a white lab coat were just as likely to be cured of their depression for a short time as the depression medication that they gave other patients.
Yeah, for a short time is a key with that.
Yeah.
Because you would need the actual chemical to have the long-term effect in there. But yes, there is even like with a lot of like patients that are first getting diagnosed, let's say with just something simple as like a regular anxiety, saying nothing special about their anxiety, like a general anxiety or a general depression, nothing serious. But they been through some stuff and they're a little stressed. When they get that medicine, there will be that placebo effect a little bit because they realize I'm getting help. And there's that positive thing in there attached to that where it gives you that little extra boost where you normally wouldn't have prior to getting treatment.
State of mind's a lot, and attitude is much in everything we do.
Mm-hmm. And attitude with mental health helps. If you have a positive attitude going into your therapy, will have a positive benefit on you, and it will allow your therapy to work quicker.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be resistant to it because you're like, I'm getting help. Wait, this sounds good. I like this thing. I'm going to give it a try because I want to get better.
Well, that's how a lot of that faith healing works. If you ask me, a lot of that faith healing works because the person has enough faith. They believe that this pastor got the healing touch. What they got, they heal themselves really. And that's kind of biblical too, though, because person come to the thing and got up and left his bed behind and walked up and wanted to thank, I think it was Paul, and Paul said, no, your faith has healed you. So it's their own mental attitude that healed their own bodies, basically.
Yeah, but I've heard like people diagnose themselves with things before going to the faith healers at times, or they wouldn't go back to their doctors to get a checkup after being healed from the faith healer, and getting a confirmation that it's been cured. And to me, I find when people say they've been healed by a faith healer, I'm really skeptical of it. But I am also believer in positive thoughts can help in your recovery, even in a physical illness or physical condition. Because if you're positive, you're not stressed. And when your body's stressed, your body's working trying to make you unstressed, which if you're sick or hurt, it's extra stress on the illness or the pain you're experiencing. So your body's trying to deal with more stress rather than you're able to just focus on, let's say, like physical therapy for rehab. If you're not stressed out over other things with it and you're feeling good about your recovery and you're trying your best and you're seeing some improvement, it's easier to stick with your physical therapy rather than if you're feeling like, this really ain't working, it's not doing it quick enough, you're going to defeat yourself, you know.
Oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
I've had several times where I was in physical therapy for different conditions or injuries. And that's a painful process, but it's something that you have to go through sometimes.
Oh, it can be quite humbling.
Yeah, but if I didn't go through it, you know, you got to go through some pain sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes with physical income, you get it. You think setting a bone feels good? You know? It's like I tell people you can't do open heart surgery without cracking open the chest first. You know.
Maybe in the distant future they'll find a way to do it, but not right now.
Yeah, for the most part, I think there might be a way that they can, like, depending on the procedure, but like for a heart transplant, they still have to do.
Yeah.
Because you just need the room to move the heart in and out, and move other things around. So they need a good size opening. But if they're like just cleaning like arterial things, they don't have to bust open your chest anymore or anything like that.
Yeah, and then there's all this new science going on now. You know, you got that growing new organs for yourself, growing your own new organs. I think I saw a thing about that. The heart doctor's working on a new procedure to grow new heart tissue on a injured heart in the person's body.
That's kind of cool. I don't know if that would be necessarily a new heart, depending on how it develops.
It'd be his own heart just regrowing.
Yeah. Or is it the heart kind of putting this new tissue on there where it would repair the old heart, make it like new?
Be something like that. Yeah, that would be amazing.
If I could read that article, that sounds like a neat read. That would be cool.
I just heard a 30-minute clip on some website. I can't even remember where it was. So.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Sometimes you see or hear something. Like I've read a couple of really good, articles on this or that, and I can't remember the life of me where it is, and I'm kicking myself because I didn't put it on my favorites bar on my browser.
Yeah. Well, think about it. A lot of that, such research like that, would be kept secret anyway because of the monetary implications of being able to regenerate people's hearts inside their chests. How much?
I don't know. See, there's plenty of monetary reasons to back it. And see, you got to also kind of think about, far as like the medical community, if they know about it and it's effective, they'll bitch and moan until they get it.
Yeah.
Like the United States Army, there's been a lot of special forces medics come out and create new, or not necessarily new, but a better package formed of bandage or something that medics commonly use. Like there was never a prepackaged chest wound bandage until a special forces medic made one, and as soon as he made it, and we found out about it, we were on the Army's ass. Get that accepted into like the supply list, so we could get it and use it because it was a new thing that was very good. And like quick clot was another thing made by soldiers, for soldiers more or less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there have been a lot of inventions come out through warfare like that.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying like for warfare or stuff, but these things, and when it becomes good and the medical people hear about it, we want them because we have to operate under the principle basically of do no harm, which I modify to cause the least amount of harm to help the person.
Well, I know of three inventions. I know of 3 inventions that came out of the MASH units in Korea.
Yeah.
The chest spreader, the rib spreader, a new forceps that would grab the arteries just softly enough it wouldn't crush them, but keep them
clamp
closed.
them, but they wouldn't crush them. It was a
new kind of sponge thing that they stuck in there to soak up the blood because they didn't have all the suction tools and stuff.
The thing you were talking about, I believe it's called a hemostat.
Yeah,
And what it was, they had one where it was just a fixed clamp where it would just squish down really hard, and that was the lock position. And they
yeah,
made it where it's commonly, like where you have like a 4 or 5 like little triangles where they interlock, and so you can clamp down where it won't squeeze in. That
yeah.
saves lives when you're dealing with shrapnel wounds.
Yeah, those things were invented during the mass units during the Korean War, I believe. In
I know reason why I know so much about the hemostat is because of MASH 4077.
yeah, I believe they did do an episode on that one, the forcep thing. Yeah,
I know it didn't probably come out the action because that was an actual MASH unit in the Korean War, but I'm pretty sure it did come from that MASH unit specifically. But since it came out of the Korean War, and they wanted to put that in because they wanted to highlight, even though war is crazy and dumb, we still get some good things out of it. And I think I died. Or did you freeze? Oh no. You there? Hello?